you asking about the sign-in sheet?
Yeah.
So whenever we call for people to speak, the sign-in sheet's right up here. Yeah, right up
Should we
there.
wait or should we do it now?
I'll just wait.
I think they want you to do it slowly, so
Yeah.
you get that
Order it.
Last time.
the sequence of the thing.
Thank you. I was like,
Now, Jill.
I'd like to call the regular Planning Commission meeting of July 11th to order at 6 p.m. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Commissioner Crafton?
Here.
Commissioner Seals?
Here.
Commissioner Sajel?
Here.
Commissioner Cottle?
Here.
Commissioner Stafford?
Here. Commissioner Crafton, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Does the commission have any adjustments to tonight's meeting agenda?
Just had one question. Were we still going to be reviewing the landscape code? I didn't see it on tonight's agenda.
Not on tonight's
Yeah,
agenda.
that's what I was curious about, because I thought we had planned them for the next 4.
No. It's not on tonight's agenda.
Okay. Just curious.
Can I speak about that?
Sure. Unless you want to do it in your report.
Thank you, Chair. So in regards to the landscape, it was a committee of the whole last time, and it was recommended by legal to have a joint meeting with the council. So I believe that's where it's at.
Yeah, so the commission and council are going to have a joint meeting on Title 16, and given that Title 16 has implications on the level of regulations and how they tie into one another, I know it's frustrating to just pause and take a step back in that way, but the hope is to have the joint meeting, which the city clerk is working on scheduling, which would allow a step one, where are we trying to go, and how do all of these pieces of the code that would include the landscaping chapter fit in together, and then come up with the ways that the planning commission and the council want to move those forward, so you have a harmonious, consistent title at the end of the process. So it is not to in any way, and we're still going to take the 4-step approach, walk through those code provisions in that way, so that the commission can ensure that that hard work is considered and becomes something useful for the city. It's not to push it off or delay, but it's really to ensure yes, streamlined approach to your planning.
Thank you. We need to get this right. I know there's been a lot of time and effort put into this, but at the end of the day, it needs to be right for the city. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is that your report? No, you better give us a report.
Just a couple other things. We're trucking along pretty well. We have about 2,600 business license that up to date, and then about 1,900 that are online businesses that are transacting in the city. We completed our SEDS and sent that to the Economic Development Administration on the 30th of June, so we're waiting for their approval. We have a hazardous mitigation plan that's done in its final draft and will be sent to FEMA the end of this month. It does have to be approved by FEMA by October 31st. We did assign a new agreement. There's a new tenant at the airport. They're going to be building a 100 by 100 hangar out there, which will be about a $3 million investment, 18 to 20 mechanics. We tried to get that constructed this year, but there were some delays in some of the project deadlines, so they'll be breaking ground there in the next spring. 4th of July was a good hit. We had 75 floats and about 11,000 plus attendees with no disruptions other than somebody tried to be in the float and they didn't know there was a parade going on. So that was only our only disruption. And the 4th of July Mayor's Picnic had about 5,000 attendees, great music, lots of hot dogs. And I think that's, one last thing, the train depot. People probably have seen we've been working on the train depot, building all the infrastructure around it. Alaska Railroad is getting ready to put up some signage so people know the passenger pickup and drop off is still on Main Street, but starting in 2024, they will be stopping at that new location. So all that infrastructure will be ready for them to stop. I did a park tennis courts. They're going to be constructed this summer. And Public Works is out cleaning storm drains, and they finished the 2022 paving, so they're on to the 2023 paving list. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. City Attorney, do you have a report?
My only report would be that the city clerk is looking to get that date set for that dual meeting, that joint meeting, and really delve into that with the commission. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware that that is something coming down the pike.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to step forward to discuss anything not on the agenda tonight can do so now.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and staff. My name is Stu Graham. I am a member of the Wasilla City Council, but I'm not here in that capacity tonight. I'm just here as an interested citizen. A very brief comment today. I wanted to welcome Catherine Cottle to the Planning Commission. I think she's going to be an excellent addition. I'm glad to have her working on behalf of the city. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Stafford, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Sage, I'll second.
There are no objections. The consent agenda is approved as presented. New business. Ms. Nygaard, would you please introduce item 1 and provide your staff report?
Thank you, Chair. Resolution serial number 2310, public hearing to consider a request from the Wasilla City Council to rename Crusey Street to Warrior Street pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 12.08.030, street name changes, and provide a recommendation regarding the proposed change. This was referred actually to the Planning Commission with the intention to have it be introduced and schedule a public hearing, and those comments will be forwarded to the City Council.
At this point, I would like to get a motion to postpone.
Commissioner Stafford, I move that we postpone indefinitely resolution serial number 2310.
Commissioner Crafton seconds.
Can you take the roll?
Got a question.
Okay.
Why are we postponing?
This matter has been resolved by the stakeholders, and there will be no renaming of Crusey Street at this time.
Okay, all right.
Commissioner Crafton?
Yes.
Commissioner Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Sajel?
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Stafford?
Yes.
Regard, would you please introduce item number 2 and provide your staff report?
Thank you, Chair. That's resolution serial number 2311, recommending that the City Council accept the updated 2023 City of Wasilla Hazardous Mitigation Plan as part of the 5-year Hazardous Mitigation Plan update that's required by FEMA.
Public comments portion of this public hearing is now open for resolution serial number 23-11. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? You have 5 minutes to provide your comments. With no one wishing to speak, the public comment portion of the public hearing is closed. With no other audience comments, the public hearing is closed. Now need a motion to either approve or deny resolution serial 23-11.
Commissioner Crafton, motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Stafford, second.
Is there any discussion by the commission?
I
Oh,
see.
yes, we need to make a couple of changes. Sorry about that. Need to get a motion to change the word update to adopt on page 1 of the resolution.
To adopt? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, change from update to adopt.
Commissioner Crafton would like to make a motion to change the word update to adopt the 23 plan.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Sajel, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Aye. Okay, I need a motion to change EPA to Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is on page 2.
Commissioner Crafton makes the motion. What was it again?
To change EPA agency, United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Can I just say what he said?
Yeah.
Motion to change to Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Stafford, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right. Those changes. Now we need to, is there any discussion?
Could we get a quick summary of essentially the major highlights of what we're looking at changing here? I mean, it was a lot to read, so. I see we have it, just a quick summary would be great.
Yeah, so this is a plan that's required every 5 years that goes into FEMA, and this year we contracted Fairweather Science to work with our emergency operation team as well as all the other stakeholders in the area to update our plan. We did remove some of the items. We added a couple as well. So we identified the natural hazards that are posed as a risk to the city of Wasilla: earthquake, severe weather, including high winds, wildland and community fires, volcanic ash fall, and then flood. Something that's, I think, a little interesting is this year we added the significant hazard potential of Lake Lucille Dam in the city which was profiled for the first time. So it's very comprehensive. It's a necessity, especially for projects like this interconnect we're doing with Palmer. They want to see that we have thought through all of the possibilities, including windstorms and water. So it's very important that we have this updated. And like we had in the resolution, it's not going to EPA, it's going to go to FEMA directly. And FEMA's got 3 approved contractors, so we used one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion by the commission? None? I need a motion to approve resolution serial 23-11.
We already had a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Then we
Take the
discussion.
vote. Call the vote up.
Sure. Commissioner Crafton?
Yes.
Commissioner Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Sajel?
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Stafford?
Yes.
Motion passes. Nygaard, would you please introduce item 3 and provide your staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is short-term rental 22-03. It references resolution 23-03. The applicant is Ivy's Lakehouse Owner, Sandra Lowe. Request is for the approval to allow short-term rental of an existing single-family home. The lot acre area is 0.35 acres. Location is 1201 East West Point Drive, Track 1, Parcel 1, Lake Shore, 1963 subdivision. Zoning is RM multifamily. This actual piece of legislation was all the recommendations made by the planner previously have not changed. There was conditions in that legislation, so nothing has changed. This is a rehearing, and the city moved to have it be brought back forward to the commission, and legal can speak in more detail.
Really what we have here is we just had a clerical error in or arguably had a clerical error in the posting of the list of addresses and recipients of the notice. And the result of that was questions about whether or not the proper notice had been given. So instead of continuing to appeal, the city actually moved for rehearing to ensure that proper notice did occur. And so the record before you, the order issued by the hearing officer was that the hearing would be conducted with the same record before the commission as the prior hearing. So you're really looking at the same record, that said, as supplemented by any submissions to that record that Mr. Copperwood or any other person that may bring forward that they would have brought at the appeal itself. So that's, and I would, before closing the record, and without any objection from Mr. Copperwood, if there's an objection, that should be something that the commission considers to make sure that you really do get a comprehensive and thorough record and everyone has an opportunity to participate.
Would the applicant like to make a presentation regarding the proposed request?
My name is Noel Lowe.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noel Lowe, and I'm the owner of Ivy's Lake House. We came before the Planning Commission months ago and received an approval for our Airbnb. I was at the time surprised Mr. Copper didn't attend the meeting, and I understand that that was due to an error in getting him his notice. At least that's what I've been told. I'm more than happy to come before you guys again and basically say the same thing, which is we understand the rules. We intend to follow all of them. We're implementing technologies that are available in the market today in our Airbnb that monitor cell phone connections so you can identify if more people show up than you rented the property to, that monitor the decibel level of sound inside and outside the building so that if things get noisy at this facility, we will know before our neighbor does and be able to shut that down. It also creates a log and records a log of those events so that there shouldn't be any dispute about what happened in the event that somebody is unruly. It's always been our intention to be a good neighbor and to operate the facility according to the rules. When we originally operated this facility, we contacted the city and were asking if there were any rules pertaining to Airbnbs, and we were just given a no. And we then opened up an Airbnb only to find out later that the no meant you couldn't do it. That not having laws pertaining to Airbnb meant that you couldn't do it. When the city asked us to cease and desist, we stopped that day. We gave back $40,000 in deposits for people that had rented the facility and began participating with other folks in helping the city to draft its short-term rental ordinance. We participated all the way through that process. I think that the city developed what I might describe as a little too tight of a regulation, but one that will for sure, if followed, provide the quality of life that the neighbors of any Airbnb in our city are looking for. So we intend to follow all those rules and to go the extra mile to make sure that they're followed. We own 3 businesses in Alaska that are regulated by the ATF. We receive regular audits by the ATF. We also are audited every single year by the state of Alaska in the banking division. And in order to maintain our licenses in all of those businesses, we have to be professional. We have to do a good job. And we intend to do the very same thing with our Airbnb. We've submitted our application, are in complete compliance with all of the requests that the city has as part of the licensing process, and are just looking forward to getting open and showing our neighbor and our city that we can do a really good job and providing guests to the city a place to stay when they want to come here for sports, for vacation, for tourism, for any of the things that people come to Wasilla for. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
You can have you back up. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Public comments portion of the public hearing is now open for short-term rental permit 22-03. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? You have 5 minutes to provide your comments. Please write your name and contact information on the sign-up sheet and state your name for the record.
Alex Copper, city resident. First of all, the Hamlins asked me to check that their late arrival comments came in, and I see that they've come in, those handwritten comments. My name is Alex Copper, city resident. My wife Kate and I live directly next to this short-term rental in our house at 1225 West Point. My family has owned our property for over 50 years, well before the neighborhood became part of the city of Wasilla or its zoning. I grew up in the house. The original developer subdivided this area of West Point into small residential lakeside lots. Single-family homes were built in the West Point Drive area decades before any multifamily zoning by the city came into the neighborhood. The owners of the house next to ours at 1201 West Point acquired their property much later in 2018 and immediately turned it into an Airbnb or short-term rental. Quickly, large parties started to appear at the property. A hot tub was built, internet advertising appeared online, marketed the house as ideal for large lakeside gatherings in our otherwise quiet neighborhood. My wife has to wake up early and drive to her job. I began to receive calls from her that shouting and music noise from the back of the Airbnb at the hot tub was continuing well after midnight. Many cars appeared at the parties on New Year's and otherwise and double parked in the road, almost totally blocking access to other homes. Fireworks shot off by young house guests with debris landing on ours and surrounding homes. I don't want those bad experiences of the past to reoccur. My wife and I have requested in our letter before you that a condition be attached to this permit that would make it clear that parties and large gatherings are prohibited. This is not a special request because the existing short-term rental ordinance in the city code already has prohibitions against large gatherings at such locations. But stating this directly in the permit condition gives the owners clear warning, as the problem with parties and these type of rentals is widespread and definitely has happened at this particular house when it was operated previously. There continues to be nothing specific per se in the house rules for this property prohibiting unauthorized large gatherings. Previously, when this permit application was heard by the commission back in January, the city planner suggested a condition that would have required a minimum 3-night stay at the property. This certainly would have reduced the likelihood of guests intending to use the house for parties. I didn't get notice of that meeting and none was posted on site. I couldn't provide any written comments in support of the condition. But I would like now to give testimony to the commissioners in support of at least a minimum 2-night stay at the property. This would reduce the likelihood of any guests attempting to book the property simply for a place to party, particularly as it's a large house right on Wasilla Lake and near grocery and nearby liquor and other such stores, and has had the past problems with parties at the short-term rental. I will have to begin the work of enforcement if this property slips back into the bad experiences of the past. There will probably be some excuses and requests for second chances. The permit should be revoked if the party problems come back. We and other neighbors have the right to the use and enjoyment of our homes without excessive noise, disruption, and hazardous parking created by neighboring short-term rental. To summarize, former Wasilla Mayor Burt Cottle, who has since passed away but was involved in the short-term rental ordinance drafting hearings, said that this type of short-term rental use without restrictions has the easy potential to become hotel-like, and that such use did not fit into residential neighborhoods without very careful controls. On a different matter, for people like myself who did not receive the mailed notice of the previous January Planning Commission hearing for this permit, the Wasilla Code provisions about posting notice on the site do provide a critical backup to ensure that the public will get the notice they're legally entitled to. No such posted notice appeared back in January. For the current July hearing, an on-site notice was put at the property, but it only consisted of a small piece of paper taped to the front door, which is more than 25 feet from the roadway. It cannot be read from the road by anyone wanting to know what it reads, and they must trespass onto the owner's property and walk all the way up to the front door uninvited. This will not comply with Wasilla Code, which at 161640A2F states that the Planning Commission site notices shall be posted so that it may easily be seen from the public right-of-way. I would suggest in the future that the city creates a larger placard with a public hearing notice which can be staked out near the road so as to easily be read by public. In many other states, these are seen all the time. Large, yellow, and always staked near the road so that the public does not feel like they are unlawfully trespassing in order to get public notice information they are entitled to receive. For those who may see this type of notice as a mere technicality, the Alaska Supreme Court has already stated that notice and opportunity to be heard, particularly notice, are protected constitutional rights. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this matter?
name is Kate Lawton. I am Alex Copper's wife. I am also a Wasilla resident. And I just want to kind of reinforce what my husband brought up about the public notice. Because when we received the mailing, I kept thinking, okay, they're supposed to post public notice. And I was looking and looking and looking, and I was like, where is this? And I happened to be out working in my yard. I was mowing the lawn, and the neighbor across the street finally told me that she had taken a pair of binoculars and looked at this piece of 8.5 by 11 paper taped on the front door, and that apparently it was a notice for the rental. And I just want to emphasize, I don't feel comfortable going up on some person's property. There would be people who wouldn't appreciate that. You know, you might have people who would be very unfriendly to you coming on their property. And as my husband stated, it's not even readable from the street. You know, how do I know that it's not something like, oh, for our kid's birthday party, go around back? You don't know what you're looking at because you can't see it. I also just want to point out that with things like if someone's selling a house or renting a house, that's right down there on the street. It's large, it's visible, it's intended to be viewed by the public. And this feels to me like it complies with the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. And it is not following what it is intended to do. And that is a concern for me. And so I want that to be noted, you know, for the record, that if this short-term rentals are going to be a thing in our community, that the right and fair thing to do for community residents is to make that posting clear so that community members can actually see that notice. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, does the applicant have anything else to address? Step forward.
My name's Noel Lowe, again, the owner of Ivy's Lakehouse. Regarding notice, we posted the notice that we were instructed to post, and we were instructed to post it on the door of the home. So that's where we posted that notice. I'm not an expert in those matters. I just did what we were asked to do. Several of the large gatherings that the neighbor mentions, he regularly refers to those as gatherings of Airbnb guests. I just want to say that they were me. You know, these were family gatherings. In the photographs that he provided with his report, it's like my car, my wife's car, my parents' car. We're simply using our home to have like a family birthday party, and enough people attended the gathering that, you know, parking did spill over, and we were parked along the side of the street. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. What I do know is that in the Airbnb or short-term rental ordinances with the city, that is 1,000% not allowed. And it would be a violation of the rules. There's a provision in there for if you violate the rules 3 times, you lose your license. So while he's had bad experiences, most of them have been with me as a homeowner, I think not as an operator of short-term rental. I think the city has done a good job of crafting the short-term rental ordinance so that the neighborhood has protections specifically against noise, specifically against parking issues, specifically against many of the things that are concerning to my neighbor. And I think he'd actually, truthfully, rather live next to my guests than me. And we are 100% going to follow all those rules. I don't intend on getting a single strike as an operator of a short-term rental. And all we can do is say that we're going to follow the code. And the provisions are in the code to revoke our license if we don't. And we submit to that willingly, and we're going to try to go above and beyond, like I said, and make sure that when there are issues, we know about them first through the implementation of some technology that's available for short-term rentals today. And we're going to be good neighbors with this facility.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
I have two drawings here, and one says 4 parking spots and one says 5 parking spots.
The issue with parking spots is that we have the 3 garage doors there on the front of the house. If you double park in those spots, it puts like the last 5 feet of the vehicle into the city right away, or into the easement, I think is the correct terminology. We learned at the last go around of this that no part of a car could be parked in the easement. If you take those 3 spots and you continue to left, there's a 4th spot that's not paved, it's gravel. And then in front of that, there's 15 feet of land that goes all the way to the lake. And so I think that there's enough room there to have a 5th parking spot, not behind, but in front of the 4 spots that are on that one drawing. So I think we can legally get 5 spots on this property. And so it's our request that 5 places is allowed, and if not, I provided the drawing for 4, which was what was in the original request.
I need a motion to either approve or deny short-term rental permit 2203, resolution serial number 2312.
Commissioner Crafton moved to approve resolution 2312. 2312.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Stafford, second.
Is there any discussion by the commission?
I had 2 questions that I wanted to ask. I believe it was in here, I was just trying to find it. Did we have the condition of 3 nights in the original approval?
Remember that.
Madam Attorney, it sounds like you found it, yes? Okay. And then this next question would be for you as well.
That's not right. They voted to remove all 3 of the preconditions that were on the original. All 3 of them were removed.
That's kind of what I remember.
Yeah, that was before my meeting.
That's what I remember is all.
So your staff recommendations are the same as before. So that's I'm sorry, so that's a good question. So when you look at the staff findings, the staff.
It did originally state 3. I think the record would reflect from our last meeting that, our hearing on this, that we had changed that to 1 night.
And the one thing I would say is make sure that during this hearing, you are marching through that criteria and the staff recommendations are met, based on the fact that you received new evidence at this hearing and new testimony, so that the commission is taking into account all of the evidence on top of it.
I'll find it here then, and we'll go through.
On page 186 of 237, rental period must be a minimum of 1 night, is what the conclusion and recommended conditions of approval are.
Along with that, on page 185 at 237, staff finding towards the bottom says item 1 of this criteria is met. Next sentence says, for item 2, staff is proposing a condition of approval to require a minimum 3 night to minimize the negative impacts. So that's also in there.
It's almost contradicting that. See what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. gonna change?
The one,
3.
the three.
The other thing
Staff
I would
report.
recommend for the commission is when you look at the resolution, you know, you have conditions opposed that are different than recommendations and the findings recommended by staff. So to the extent, whatever decision the commission makes, just make sure that the commissioners take an opportunity to talk about why they are making the decision they're making. So, and which, you know, so if there's a deviation from the recommendations and the findings of the fact that you're adopting, if you choose to adopt them, and you deviate from them, it's good practice to make some statements why.
Yeah, my recollection is that we changed it to 1.
And I would, one of the things I would say is,
Yeah,
starting with the resolution that you had before, you see that you have the findings and conclusions and recommendations attached, and you incorporated them in with the conditions, and that starts on page 219.
Is where it actually says it down there.
So one of the things that I think would be useful if you're going to walk you through the whereas clauses that you decided in the previous hearing, as that's sort of the record that you were operating from, and then the findings recommended, just reading the headings of the findings and the basic reasons, so you know exactly where you ended up, and you also know what the findings were, so the commission members can consider whether or not they agree with those findings, if those findings reflect the commission's decision. And to the extent you heard anything today, anything added to the record that supplements that or adds to it, then that would be the time to really think about that and then issue.
commission thoughts?
Do we want to have the city planner then review the staff findings at
Yeah.
that point? Basically, we'd just be going back in our agenda here and having her review it.
So she's gonna review the resolution, and that's the only thing that's a little different here. That were recommended in the staff report before, so that the commission has everything in front of them. And you may wanna ask if there's any objections to that process, because this is a rehearing. So you may wanna ask the public, and I know that's a little different also than we're used to, but you might wanna ask for objections so that you're aware of the concerns that parties might have.
Is there any objections from the audience on this being looked at by the city planner?
Any objections to that process?
The process. I know time is of the essence here. Objections?
Well, I have a comment on that process, because I think I'm understanding
I'm
it.
sorry, can you?
I've never, my name's Noel Lowe. I've never been to a rehearing before, so I'm a little confused, but if I understand what you are saying correctly, is that the actions of the planning commission at the commission at the last meeting were to strip the additional restrictions that were placed on the license, and the license was approved with no restrictions.
Objection.
That was what happened at the last meeting. And then at this meeting, it sounds like we're starting back over with the resolution prior to any modifications, so that the planning, if I understand you, what you're saying correctly, the planning commission would then have to remove those restrictions a second time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So when we have a rehearing, the idea is, that notice wasn't, and I would say, that notice may not have been done properly. And so for that reason, we want to make sure that you're affording everybody the same rights they would have had if there was no hearing before, right? And so that means, while it may, I know it can be frustrating, it takes time. The commission needs to act like they have an elevated permit in front of them. The permit's been elevated, a staff report's been prepared, and then also sort of bowl through that and add into their considerations any evidence or testimony that was added at this hearing. So you're really doing, instead of it being, you're really redoing it. You know, you're going
Okay,
to the
now I
only
understand
thing that
what's
is
going on.
really kind of awkward or different for a lot of us is that you're doing it on predominantly the same record that you had before you last time, and then just adding any testimony or evidence presented that would have been presented then or would have been presented at the appeal hearing that was scheduled in August this year. So
I think I understand.
I understand.
I apologize. I know it's not
Okay.
an easy one.
The only thing that I would add to my previous testimony is that we request approval of our license with only the city's short-term rental ordinance as restrictions on the license. You know, the city spent a long time developing the short-term rental ordinance, and they made the decision in their wisdom to make it a one-day license. And I don't feel like the very first license that we approve should be implementing additional restrictions, because there's nothing special about the first license that you do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam City Planner, may I approach? Alex Copperud. I raised an objection earlier. The nature of that objection is simply this: the applicant's most recent statements implied that on January 10th, this body passed a resolution that had 0 conditions applied to this short-term rental. That is not the case. There were conditions that applied that stated that the maximum occupancy was 8 people, that the rental person was 1 night, which is what the applicant wanted, and that they had to have provided an updated house rules and showing that where were 4 permitted parking spaces on the existing gravel parking area. Those were conditions that were present my understanding was, in the January 10th resolution signed January 11th by this body. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand there. We have conditions. There are no 0 conditions.
Understood.
Okay, I need a motion to change from 3 nights to 1 night on this rental.
So it says 1 night.
Looking at the resolution, which is page 219 through 221, it does already say 1 night.
It's already 1 night,
Okay.
so we don't need to change it.
So it's already saying 1 night, so I don't think we need, if that's what we want to do, there's no
Yeah.
change.
All right. Let's just motion to approve.
I did.
I do think that it's important, because of the confusion regarding the record, that the acting planner walk through the staff report with the commission and the resolution, stating on the record what the terms were in the resolution and what the staff report recommendations were, and then the commission can make its decision.
Thank you.
And to the extent there's a change in the decision based on the testimony, I would recommend the commission identify that for the record. Stop talking.
Thank you, Chair. This is resolution serial number 2312, a resolution of the Wasilla Planning Commission rehearing and approving short-term rental permit 2203 to allow short-term rental of an existing single-family home located on parcel 1, tract 1, Lakeshore, 1963 subdivision. Whereas Sandra Lowe, Ivy's Lakehouse Owner Applicant, submitted short-term rental permit number 2203 on October 17th, 2022, requesting approval to operate a short-term rental in an existing single-family home. And whereas the application included the required information that addresses the short-term rental criteria and requirements in Chapter 16.26 of the Wasilla Municipal Code. And whereas notice of the application was mailed to all property owners within a 1,200-foot radius, the appropriate review agencies, the Wasilla Planning Commission, and the Wasilla City Council as required by Wasilla Municipal Code 16.16.040A2 prior to the January 10th, 2023 hearing. And whereas the sufficiency of the publication of the notice of the January 10th, 2023 hearing was challenged on appeal, and the city moved for a rehearing on the elevated permit by the commission in order to ensure proper notice of the commission's hearing on the elevated permit. And whereas notice of the elevation and date of rehearing was mailed to all property owners within 1,200 feet radius, the appropriate review agencies, the Wasilla Planning Commission, and the Wasilla City Council as required by Wasilla Municipal Code 16.16.040A2 on January 23rd, 2023. And whereas a notice of the public rehearing was published in the Frontiersman on July 2nd, 2023. And whereas the Wasilla Planning Commission deliberated on the request, taking into account the information submitted by the applicants, evaluation and recommendations of staff contained in the staff report, public testimony, both written and verbal comments, the applicable provisions of the Wasilla Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, and other pertinent information brought before them both at the original hearing and at the rehearing. And whereas the commission adopted findings of fact attached as Exhibit A, summarizing facts found by the commission and the reasoning underlying its decision. And now therefore be it resolved that the commission hereby approves the application of the findings of fact attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein with the following conditions. 1, the short-term rental must remain in compliance with all requirements in the WMC 1626 short-term rentals while the dwelling unit is in operation as a short-term rental. 2, maximum occupancy is 8 persons over 2 years of age. 3, rental period must be a minimum 1 night. 4, applicant must submit the following updated items to the city planner prior to issuance of the short-term rental permit. A, location and updated interior sign, house rules. Sign must be located in a conspicuous location and state that there are only 4 permitted parking spaces located on existing paved gravel parking area abutting garages. B, updated site plan showing location of 4 permitted parking spaces, minimum 10-foot by 20-foot space located on existing paved gravel parking area abutting garages. C, updated rental agreement stating that the minimum rental period is 1 night per condition 3. Maximum occupancy is 8 persons over 2 years of age. The applicant must contact the Massachusetts Assistant Borough Fire Marshal's Office to determine whether review for compliance with all applicable fire codes, building codes, and emergency access as related to public health, safety, and welfare is required for the short-term rental, adopted by the Wasilla Planning Commission on July 11th, 2023.
Thank you.
Commissioner Grafton here again. So this is what it's, as if we basically just approved it as is, as it was before. Though from what I'm understanding, our staff report still states that we should be encouraging 3 nights. Is that what I'm understanding? So if we go back to, would we say 189?
Yeah.
It was somewhere in there is technically what the staff states.
One of the things things I'd recommend the commission do, and you may want to take a minute, is just make sure that all of you have read the findings that are in, on these pages. Just take a moment and read them through. And because when you adopt this, you're saying that as a commission, you're incorporating these findings into your own. And so, it's important that the commissioners can state, we have reviewed the recommended findings, and those findings reflect our decision-making as individuals. So that's when a court is looking at good findings, it's looking to understand the reasons for your decision. So it's very important that you read those and make sure that you agree with them.
Commissioner Crafton, I would also say on page 225 of the staff report, the finding was a rental period of 1 night stay.
So 225.
Page 225.
Okay, so we have an updated
Correct.
staff findings, gotcha.
Correct.
That was the old staff findings in the previous one.
Correct.
Okay. What?
Page 225. Almost at the bottom, it says rental period under 1626.060C. Yep. So that aligns with the resolution in the packet.
Commissioner Crafton here. I had another question, Madam Attorney. Change of notices, as mentioned by the public here. The question was raised at City Council last night, but could you just restate what we're kind of looking at doing here? Are we reviewing it? Are we going to be revising how our notices are posted, received, etc.?
Yes, while this is outside the purview of the hearing, I will say one of the things that this has sparked is a careful consideration of how the planning department and the city is getting notices and information out there so people can actively engage and participate. That does not mean that anything that the city is doing is unlawful, but it is a question of best practices and innovative resources for dispensing information, and there's just a lot out there that the city wants to update and streamline, so there will be changes coming as a result of those efforts.
Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Do we want to take a 5-minute recess to review?
Need a recess. Here, we're gonna take a recess. 5-minute recess.
So it doesn't.
Commissioners, is there any more discussion? We have a motion.
I do have one more question if they don't have anything else. So the applicant, it's Commissioner Crafton, the applicant is now asking for 5 parking spaces. It looks like we still have you only approved for 4, is what I'm understanding. And looking at, I guess this is a really old as-built, and it states we need to give you a 10 by 20 space for, is it 20 feet wide or 20 feet long? I guess it's 20 feet long, 10 feet wide, which looks like there would be room there. Could we add a condition to give them that 5th parking space if there's adequate room there?
If you're going to deviate from the application and what was, so you had the record and you had the application, this rehearing was really to allow more testimony to participate in that. So if you are going to deviate, then you need to make sure, because you have an application, you had a resolution, and those recommendations, make sure that you're getting the information and the recommendations of your planner, and that you're then providing an opportunity for anybody else in the room who wants to speak to that, because they would not have had notice of those questions, right? So unless those are in the records, I did not see them. I just want to make sure, those were submitted.
I think at this time, the applicant doesn't want to deviate from the 4 spots. That's the best way to proceed. So,
Nothing else from me then.
we have a motion. Do we have a second? Let's call for the vote. Approve resolution 2312.
Commissioner Crafton?
Yes.
Commissioner Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner St-Joe?
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Stafford?
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to unfinished business. No unfinished business. Communications, the following items are in the communications packet. Any comments? Move on to audience comments. Is there anyone wishing to provide comments in the audience?
Good evening, council members. My name is Ann Kilkenny. I'm a city resident. I came here this evening to speak on ordinance serial number 20, resolution serial number 2310, which is advertised in your agenda on your website and in the newspaper as a public hearing. But no public hearing was called. Public was not allowed to speak. Instead, contrary to your normal procedure where you hear from the public before you make a motion to adopt or amend or whatever, you went directly to a motion which was to postpone indefinitely. Now, I do not object. I think you made the right decision. But the appearance was that there was something decided outside of the public purview. And only because Mr. Sagel asked, why, do we get any idea of what was going on? I think this is poor public process. And I'm sure glad that there wasn't a whole room full of Wasilla High students here expecting to get heard and to have their proposal discussed. It would be nice to know what in the world finally caused somebody to withdraw this proposal. Thank you.
I'd like to address you for just a moment, if I could, to give you some clarity in this issue. Jason Marvel, the principal of Wasilla High, could not be here tonight and could not be here in telephonically either. He had dropped his request for the street change, and so it was decided that the best way to finish off the issue would be just to postpone it indefinitely. So I appreciate your testimony at the last meeting. It was very informative, but I want to assure you there was no collusion. There just couldn't be a representative from Wasilla High School here tonight in the official capacity.
May I respond?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not sure. Do you guys
You should have
generally
said
allow-
that.
I want you to be consistent with your I think that, generally you allow 3 minutes for public comment. Correct?
Yeah.
And you generally allow individuals to speak once, or do you allow for multiple?
I had a minute 24 left when I left the table.
She has time left.
She had a minute 24 left. I can verify that. She can finish it
For
out.
a minute and 24 seconds. I think she's the.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate her comments in a minute and 24 seconds.
Yeah.
In the minute and 24 seconds I have left, this is Ann Kilkenny finishing my comments. You should have explained that. You really should have explained that. That should have been part of, you should have called for discussion among the council members so that Mr. Sagel wouldn't have had to say why. You should have asked Mr. Crafton, please explain, or was it Stafford that made the motion? Stafford moved, you seconded. You guys knew that Marvel wasn't going to be here and wanted to withdraw it. You should have said, we're postponing indefinitely because the applicant has withdrawn his request. It was just mystery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any staff comments this evening? There's only two of you.
Hear no comment from me.
I will make a quick comment, and I think that, because I think that this is a great practice pointer, and I do think that what the commission did was fully lawful, and I think one of the things we forget is that our commission members may have common knowledge, shared knowledge, but that doesn't mean that they've discussed it inappropriately. But that said, which did not happen here, but that said, I often find that commissions do the best when you share your thoughts and your rationale because it is so valued. And so it's valued in quasi-judicial proceedings and it's valued in legislative proceedings. And so it's always a good practice to be bold and participate in discussions and share the basis of your information. It makes for a better record, and it usually makes for a more protected one as well.
Thank you. Commission comments?
Commissioner Stafford, I'd like to, I was on the Muni website today trying to find some information on their assembly meeting tonight, and it was a nightmare. So I want to give props to the City of Wasilla staff that maintain our website and have it set up. It's way easier to use than the Muni's website. So props that we're, little town is beating the big city on getting things done right.
Mr. Sagel, do you have any comments?
No.
Mr. Crafton?
Yeah, Commissioner Crafton here. Ms. Kilkenny, I want to thank you, of course, for coming down, as well as for you guys for coming down and providing public comment here. I always appreciate hearing from the public what they have to say. I'll mention as well, going back to the Crusey Street situation, I actually didn't know that the principal had pulled their recommendation. I seconded it because, again, last meeting I had tried to quash this from the get-go. I didn't even want to have a public hearing on this one. I had heard enough of the public comment back at a city council meeting and knew that this was not something that a lot of the public even wanted from the get-go. So again, the only reason why I seconded it was because I was like, all right, great, we're done with this, it sounds like here. So no, I didn't fully understand that's what the reason was. For our staff, do we have any record of it being pulled by the principal there at all? Do we have anything that shows that?
I do not have a letter from the principal, but I was notified that will be coming, and so we just have received verbal.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then lastly, Ms. Cottle, looking forward to meeting you here at hopefully our next meeting, and hope you feel better. Glad to have you join us here on the commission. That's all for me.
Commissioner Seals, I wanted to welcome you also, Ms. Cottle. Looking forward to working with you. The city has a bright future, and we get to have a small part in that. Would you like?
I thank you for letting me participate telephonically. I look forward to working with all of you in person, and hopefully participating on the normal voice, and won't be spreading any buzz.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to having you here.
Thank you.
Hearing no